All right, welcome back. This is Databases Standard 2. We're going to look at navigating inside a database, and we're going to go back and pick up a couple of things I left out on the last video. So let's reopen up our database. This is how it opens up when we first start it. You might look at it and think you've maybe lost all of the information that you put in. Access keeps everything for you here in the navigation pane on the left-hand side. So we have the table we created last night that has our suspects in it. We have the form that has our suspects in it. So let's just open up that form again. And you can see that my suspects are still all here. There's my primary key. Here's their names, all the information about them. I can navigate pretty easily down here in the bottom with this navigation buttons. I can go through record by record. I can go to the end. And if I use the to the right with the star, it will create a brand new record for me. So it's pretty easy to navigate. I can also change my views. This was the wizard that helped me create this particular form. If I don't quite like the way it looks, I'm going to go into my views, and I have some different ones here. I have the layout view, I have the design view. Let's go into the layout view. This just shows me how it's all laid out here for me. I can make some changes to it. I can add buttons and some other things. Or I can go into my design view, and in my design view, I actually see the form itself. There are some labels. So here's my label for the ID, and then there's the actual ID box that's going to appear. I've got the name of my suspect label and the name of suspect data form. So I can put a footer in here. I can do some other things like that. If I wanted to put a background image, I could do that in my design tools. I could make it look nicer than what it is. But for our purposes, we don't really need that. We're going to go back to design, go back to my view, and go back to form. And remember, when you're done with a particular item, you can put it back in the navigation pane just by right-clicking and closing it. Let's open up our table with our suspects. And here we have everybody that we've entered from last night. There are 40 of them. If we want to sort this again, we select this column. We're going to go to sort it on ascending order, and this was the order that I entered them in. You're not going to have a nice list that's broken out like this typically when you have data. You know, it's not all broken out by female, male. It's not all entered just with differences in each one to make them a little bit different. It's going to be just a randomized list. So it's going to look more like this, or who knows. It could look like anything with the data you've got. The nice thing about Access is we're able to ask questions of the data. Asking a question of the data is what's called a query. And if it helps you to remember the querying of the data is a question, think of it this way. The root here is the Q part. We're a query asking a question of our data. So let me show you how to write a quick query. All right, so we're back in Access. To create our query, we're going to go to this little helpful tab called the Create tab. In the Create tab, I have different groups that we're able to make things for use in our database. So we could make another table. We could make another form if we wanted to. We're going to create a query, and in a little while we're going to come back and make a report. But for now, let's use the query wizard. I love wizards because wizards will walk you through step by step if you don't really know what you're doing. And if you use a wizard and you make a mistake, you can always go back and undo it and try again. So let's make a query wizard, and we're just going to use a simple query because we have a simple one table database. And we're going to call it suspects. That's the table we're coming off of here. So I want to use all of the available information that I have, and I'm going to use this select everything to put that into my query. I'm going to hit next, and it's going to say, what would you like? Do you want to have the details of everything or just a summary? We're going to be looking for a suspect that was maybe involved in a robbery or a theft, and so we have some information about this perpetrator, and we're going to enter this into our database and find out who we need to question. Obviously, we're not going to just assume they're guilty yet, but hey. So I click next, and it's called Suspects Query. I want to now modify the query design because I haven't asked it a real question yet. I've just had it pull up all the information. So when I modify it and I click Finish, down at the bottom of my screen, I have my fields. I have my ID and I have my name. I don't know the name of my suspect, but I do know that my suspect was male, and we do know that our suspect was blonde. Somebody got a peek at his eyes. He has blue eyes. He is short. His build is large, which is a nice way of saying he is overweight. And no, he is not wearing glasses. Now, when I have entered the information I have, I can come up to my query tools in the design, and when I hit run, what I'm going to get, I'm going to find out that our suspect is Owen Money, and there are all of our criteria. So we asked a question of our data. I can close this query, and it is still, let's save it. It is still going to be here in my navigation pane, and I could go back and I could ask another question of the data if I needed to. So databases are very powerful. It's not going to always return just one result, but maybe you have a company and you need to find out who bought whatever particular product. There was a recall of food recently in the news, and so the producers of that food are going to have to go through their databases and figure out which particular batches of food had to be recalled and where did it get sent, so they can rather quickly do a search and find out that it's gone to this store and this store and this store, and they can know where to start rather than having to go talk to everybody they might have as a customer. Okay, we need to talk about reports, and then that pretty much will finish up our databases here. I'm back in my opening view with none of my tables or queries or forms open. If I open up my suspects table, I can create a report that will show me in a little bit nicer form what all my information is in this. So I'm going to go again to my Create tab, and here in my Reports group I have a couple of options pre-built. Let's go to the report, just standard report, and you see what I get is I have everybody's ID, all their information, all the boxes are the same width, so it's pretty generic, but it built the report for us. The problem is I don't need to have everybody's information here. But because I wrote a report based off of this table, I'm going to get everybody's information here. I can do some other things, so I could go into my view, and let's go to my design view, and I can start to make these a little bit smaller by clicking on one of these boxes and dragging this. Click here, make this box smaller if I can get my mouse to work. So I can make these boxes a little less big here in my design view. Nope. Just select the one. There. You gotta love when it doesn't want to work for you. Grabbing here. I've probably shown you enough of this. So let's go back here to my design, go back to my view, and back in report view. You can see I've made these boxes narrower now, and we can see more of this information here. It's not the most useful report because it's showing us the information on everything on our table. And if I had created this report off of the form, because the form is how we're entering all of this data for the table, the report would look exactly the same. So to make a report that's worth something to us, I'm going to close this, and I don't want to save the changes. Let's close my table here. So, oops, sorry, right there. I want to close it. And let's open up our query on the suspects. So I want to get a report that shows Owen Money. So I'm going to come over here to my Create tab again, and let's create a report. So you see I have my report. It's got Owen. I need to do some things though to maybe make this try to fit a little bit better. So I'm going to go into my page setup in the report layout tools. It's a contextual menu again. So I'm going to come in here. Let's set it to landscape. That didn't quite do everything I needed to. We can format some of our text if you want to add a background image. I was playing earlier with the image for the Guess Who game, because this is kind of what this assignment is built off of, is that old Guess Who game you played as a kid, and everybody with glasses, you'd either turn down their tile or leave it up. So I could add that as a background image if I wanted to. I can play with the arrangement of things in here. But for right now, let's go into my design view, and I have Owen Money. I want to make this fit on one page, so I'm going to maybe leave his name bigger, but sex is small, hair color, and again I did the same thing I just did on the last report there. You get the idea. It doesn't want to, of course I'm making the video so it doesn't want to do this for me, but there's my edge, grab the hair color, grab the eye color, see if I can do this carefully. That's my problem, it's grabbing on the inside. Height, and build. I'm almost onto one page, so drag this down on the build. Okay, now when I go back into my design tab, go back to my views, let's go to the report view. Here I have Owen Money. I have a total of 1 suspect here. I've got my page numbers. And so I've created a report that actually makes some sense. We're going to write a query and then we're going to write a report based on some information. So I know that all the information I need is going to be in my tables. So let's open up this table here that has all of our information on it. So we know that our perpetrator of this most recent crime is tall and wears glasses. We're not sure if it's male or female. Maybe it's wintertime, they got heavy coats on, or sometimes it's just hard to tell. So the report and the query we're going to write are going to be based off of this table. You can write a query on a query to further narrow down your information, but we want to make sure that when we write this report and this query that we're doing it off of the suspects table. So I am going to use my query wizard on my suspects table. I want to use all the information I have. Click Next. I want a detail, and let's modify my design. So when I finish, all I really know about my suspect is the criteria. I have glasses, yes, and their height is tall. So I have the 2 pieces of information that I have to go off of. When I hit run, I have a total of 5 suspects. Okay, so if I had some other information, I could look and I could see who else this might be. But okay, I have 5 good suspects I can go out and interview and try to figure out if they were at the scene of the crime or whatever happens. So I'm going to use this suspects query and let's write a report off of it. We want to have something that looks nice to print, so I'm going to go to create and let's create a report. We have to save it. And here's my report. So I can go in to my views. Let's go into my layout view. I apologize, it's not layout view, it's design view. Again, I'm going to be grabbing these boxes. Let's grab this X box and make it smaller. So I'm going to try to get everything to fit on the one page so that when I print this, it's going to look nice and I can give it to my bosses and really impress them with my knowledge of databases and how quickly I can find out information. So we do this. Let's go back to my design again, go to my views, back in report view. Here I have the 5 suspects and I could print this and I would be ready to go. I'd have all the information that I need.